Go ahead, we live. We live now.
Can I go on?
Yes, we live now.
All right. Good day, everyone. This is Dr. Emmanuel Iruonagbe. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear.
All right, good. I'm speaking from Nigeria. I will be discussing on the psychological effect of labeling learners in the pursuit of academic attainment. There's a video there I would like us to listen to as a background to tell us the importance of a teacher. And can we play that video, please? Just a minute video or two. Can we play it? And that video be played, please. The second slide, the video is there. Yes. I want us to listen properly to that video. It gives a background of how important the teacher is. Is it audible? All right. Did we listen to the video? Let's hold on. From there, let's listen. What is labeling? Labeling is using a label or describing someone or something in a word or short phrase. In a word or short phrase. Labeling theory in sociology. Hold on, you're too fast. You're too fast. You're too fast. You're too fast, please. Ascribe labeling of people. You're too fast. Hello? Yes, please. Okay. Labeling theory in sociology ascribe labeling of people to control and identification of deviant behavior. Now, when we talk about deviant behavior, it has to do with behavior that is not acceptable to society. And if society has their own rules and regulations, and so labeling can differ from one society to another. But a common negative labeling that is generally associated with every society is on the next slide. Next slide, please. Common negative labeling. You see when you label someone as a loser, or you never do well, or a selfish person, or an ugly person, a lazy person, a fat person, a criminal, a skinny bone, failure, addict, or stupid. These are words that are used commonly by people to label others. Now, what are the effects of this labeling on people generally before we get to the point of the effect of labeling on students, which the learners, which are the key factors of today? Now, what do we have here? We say Labeling people can impact a person's self-identity and become ingrained in their psyche. Researchers have shown that labeling someone with a mental disorder can lead to a negative outcome, including feelings of rejection, discrimination. All of these can lead to the worsening of mental disorder and the person's overall mental health. Now, it is the effect of labeling itself is seen in the behavioral attitude of those who have been labeled. This attitude begins to increase as this labeling continues. And as the labeling continues, this begins to be ingrained in the psyche of the one who is being labeled. And sooner than later, he or she begins to accept the names, the labeling that has been ascribed to him or her. And so this becomes a part of that person. Let's go to the labeling theory. What does the labeling theory talk about? Labeling theory purports that society establishes or establishing someone as a criminal based on a defiant behavior may lead others to mistreat that person, including as a criminal, which may cause stigmatization. When we label people, society tends to agree with us, and that person is stigmatized. Labeling seems innocuous, but it can be harmful. Labeling ourselves can be harmful and can negatively affect one's esteem and hold us back from achieving that which we are capable of achieving. Labeling people can cause persistence of negative stereotypes in three ways. One, it encourages deviant self-concepts. Two, a process of social exclusion. Three, increased involvement in different groups. What are we talking about here? When we continue to label someone, particularly a student, it encourages deviant self-concept. That person begins to see himself or herself as we ascribe to that person. And the person accepts it and begins to behave like that. Rather, we are trying to change that person's behavior, but the person now accepts that behavior and continues in that line and thought of action. Two, a process of social exclusion. Such a person that is being labeled very soon becomes a recluse and actually excludes himself or herself from society and begin to behave in a particular way that we are trying to change. So they become excluded from society. Now, it increased involvement in different groups. Because you have confirmed that person as a deviant, that person basically begins to look for people like himself or herself, people we want him or her to dissociate from, to actually associate with them, because he or she feels only comfortable in the midst of such a people because of the way we have labeled them. Now, what is the effect of labeling on learners? Let's go to effect on learners to start with. It affects the way students see themselves. When a student has been labeled, it becomes a part of his or her identity. So if you tell a child in a school as a teacher, you are never do well, that child continues to see himself as a never do well because you consistently use such words. Two, it doesn't damage, but put students in boxes. It damages and puts students in boxes. Because you have ascribed a particular adjective to qualify that student lives within the box of that name you have put the child. Now it shapes expectations that are set for other people's creating stereotypes. These stereotypes can result in unrealistic expectation or less, expecting less from someone despite what they're capable of. Because we have labeled people, we begin to expect less from them because we feel that they cannot do better. And this is not true, because there is nobody that does not have the capacity to improve or increase the ability to do anything as long as they set their minds to do them. But because we have labeled them, they begin to accept that which we have said of them and become difficult for them to get out of that box which we have placed them. Now, for teachers, now our teacher may have preconceived ideas of a child's capability based on the label and may not teach the child to their fullest capacity. Just because you feel that this child isn't doing well and you feel it's a never do good or is dull or foolish or stupid, as you have labeled the child, becomes difficult for you to be able to teach that child to full capacity because you feel he can never understand. And this is a very wrong notion. It makes a child to believe that behavior and personality traits define who he or she is when he or she can correct, change, or adapt them. So if you have made a child or a student to feel that he's dull, can never do well, he can never pass his exams, that child begins to remain in that capacity and never actually passes the exam because of what you have made that child to believe and what that child cannot perceive, because it has remained in the child's psyche that my teacher actually understands me, that I will not do well, or thinks that I will not do well because he doesn't understand me. Now it's left for the teacher to be careful not to also overreact to behavior of a labeled child and would be tolerated in another. Because a child is labeled, any little mistake on the part of that child is seen as a serious misdemeanor. Meanwhile, if another child that is not labeled, that is in the teacher's good book, performs that same behavior, he is overlooked because he's not labeled. So labeling actually takes away the empathy a teacher feels for his students. Now, what's the effect of labeling on child learners? Labeling stifles a child's growth and limits his or her potentials. Because we label them, we tend not to give them tasks that can improve on the academic potentials because we feel that they're not capable. It is a wrong notion to feel that one is not capable without actually going through one's ability systematically or through diagnosis to be able to arrive at that decision. It stops you, the teacher, from showing the kids or your students empathy. It is important that a teacher empathizes with the students. Sometimes we are completely dogmatic in our belief because we feel that they are not doing too well. Some of these challenges in the students face is as a result of biological deficits. A student could be suffering from dyslexia and the teacher doesn't know, and the teacher gets angry at every time the child cannot read or pronounce a word without actually diagnosing the cause of this. Same thing with dyscalculia, same thing with dyspraxia. If you do not take time to ascertain the actual cause of a child's poor performance, it is wrong for the teacher to begin to label that child, because rather than help the child to improve to the best the child can be, it actually makes the child become redundant and less eager or less in the mood to learn from that teacher. It also makes the student to believe that talents are innate and unchangeable. So because we perceive that the child doesn't have a talent, the child begins to think that he's not born with one. And so because he's not born with one, he cannot develop it. That is stereotyping the child, because it is possible for a child to learn a skill, even if the child is not having the innate quality of having that skill. And that brings us to the maxim when they say, "Are leaders made or are leaders born?" So it's neither here nor there, because every school of thought have ideas and have beliefs if leaders are made or if they are born. But the fact is that leadership can also be learned. So if leadership can be learned, it means that anything possible, anything in this sphere of life can also be learned. It also makes it harder for teachers to correct this behavior, because we consistently use these words, attitude, action towards a labeled child, becomes difficult for us to actually encourage that child to do better because the child is labeled already. So it is important that teachers begin to learn that their action actually have a very serious effect on children, on learners, on students, and so they need to be very careful with their level of emotional intelligence. And that's where it is important that every teacher is grounded in emotional intelligence, because if you're not, at the time you'll be hurting a child by your actions, by your words, you wouldn't know, because it's a general thing that is being done. And this actually impacts negatively on the learner. Now we come to the issue of the mind. The mind. On slide 11, you find out the mind. I've always believed in the power of positive mindsets and the value of seeing opportunities with changes. This was said by Dr. Alia Crum of Stanford University. What was Dr. Crum trying to say? Mindset can change our reality by shaping what we pay attention to, how we feel, what our bodies prioritize and prepare to do. All these are part of what is formed by our mind. And how do our mind come to that possibility? Our minds come to that possibility because of what we constantly hear. And so the psychological effect of labeling actually box up a child or learner to the fact that his mind continues to replay those words and those actions that are pushed towards him. Now, the fact is that nothing is impossible for the mind to achieve. All we need to do is focus the child on his strengths or her strengths rather than her weaknesses. It is not impossible for a child who has challenges, behavioral challenges, to change and become better. This is possible if we are patient enough for the child and we are sensitive to what that child is going through. Now it brings us to, from the mind, brings us to the fixed mindset and growth mindset. The fixed mindset and growth mindset. Dr. Derwick of Stanford University coined the term fixed mindset and growth mindset to describe the underlying belief people have about learning and intelligence. When students believe that they can get smarter, they understand that effort makes them stronger. They therefore put in extra time and effort, and that leads to higher achievements. On the other hand, if students are made to believe the contrary, they put less effort in their work, and that leads to low academic achievement. Now, in addition to teaching kids about the malleable intelligence, researchers started noticing that teachers' practice has a big impact on students' mindsets. And the feedback that teachers give their students can either encourage a child to choose a challenge and increase achievement, or to look for an easy way to escape such challenges. For example, studies have shown that telling children that they are smart encourages a fixed mindset, whereas praising hard work and effort cultivates a growth mindset, and vice versa. Now, what are we saying here? When you start telling a child that the child is smart, you are intelligent, that child has a fixed mindset of his abilities. It is rather important that as teachers, we praise the hard work and effort put into the work to produce that excellence than talk about the fact that they are intelligent or they're smart. If we keep talking about the fact that they are smart and they're intelligent, it creates a notion that they don't need to work hard because they are intelligent or they're smart. But if we make it clear to them that their intelligence emanates from the fact that they have done a lot of work, they have put in the effort, they have sweated, they have burnt the midnight candle, that is why they're able to achieve excellence, then you find that they continue to strive to remain in that domain. But never too long, if we continue to praise their intelligence and their smartness without praising the effort, they begin to fall short of academic expectation. And this has been proven in researches, that the more you tell the child about the child's intelligence, the less the child wants to work hard. But when you propagate the fact that working hard brings the child to that level of excellence, the child continues to work hard. And that continues to improve on the child's work habits. And other children who are not that smart will now understand that for them to get to the level of excellence, they need to work hard. Work hard to become good. They work harder to become their best, because they now realize that it is not magical, but it's important that as you work hard, you begin to get very acquainted with techniques, with rules that can help you understand the concept that you are being taught. And so because they begin to spend more time in the academic pursuit, they begin to get better. So it is important to acknowledge, to aggrandize work rather than innate intelligence or innate ability. Hard work can produce excellence, but smartness or intelligence alone cannot produce excellence. Intelligence can fall back to become mediocrity when one ignores the fact that it comes with hard work. Now it brings us to this growth mindset. In neuroscience, we have what is called the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC. It is a region of the human brain which is responsible for many functions, including emotional expression, awareness, pain management, attention allocation, and automatic nervous system response. This part of the brain needs to be kept healthy by the action or inaction of teachers, as it helps learners to either be motivated or demotivated. What are we saying? It is important here to note that when a child's emotion is bruised, when a child's self-esteem has been injured, it develops into a mental state that creates a low self-esteem, lack of willpower to excel, and then resigning self to fate. So it is important that the anterior coagulate cortex, that is important in the way a child feels his emotion, and even everybody, not just the child, be kept in good stead. Therefore, it means that teacher, either in every aspect of education, take time to mind the words that are used in interacting with a learner or a student, as the case may be. Because everything that is being said is stored in a memory package, either the long-term memory or the short-term memory. If it's something that impacts the child heavily, it stays in the long-term memory. And that is what the child continues to remember rather than forget. So words and action can be very injurious to the academic well-being of a learner in pursuit of academic attainment. Now, the dopamine effect. Everybody at one time or the other feels ecstatic, excited. How does this happen? Dopamine is a chemical substance released into the system of a person. It is responsible for allowing you to feel pleasure, satisfaction, and motivation. When you feel good that you have achieved something, it is because you have a surge of dopamine in your brain. Now, when a child is encouraged at every little ability the child shows, every little ability the learner shows, every little positive development the child exhibits, dopamine effect is released into the child's brain, and the child aspires to do better and continues to improve on the attainment of his academic pursuits. Dopamine is in a system, but the release can be engineered by what the child hears and by what the teacher does. And so it behoves on us as educators to make sure that it is words and actions that actually causes the release of dopamine into our learner's brain that we continue to aspire to achieve. When this is aspired, the child begins to feel very much comfortable and is ready to assimilate and take in correction, as the case may be. On the other hand, if we continue to denigrate them, either in words or in action, like we have seen, labeling them all kinds of names, it reduces the release of dopamine to their system, and so you find them moody, unhappy, ready to be antagonistic, and not wanting to conform to societal norms or expectations of their instructors or teachers. So it is very important that the effect of teachers and the release of dopamine into the brain of every learner and student is very much key to their understanding concept. And this is in the hands of the teacher. We move on to explanations on some of these things that we have discussed. There was a school some time ago in my country where a particular student was actually being labeled intelligent, the best, and all whatnot. Those other students who have been trying to meet up with expectation and actually be a competitive challenge to these so-called A-star students began to try every means to achieve that same excellence. But a particular student at home was encouraged by the father that whatever it took that child to be excellent or to beat these so-called excellent students and be first in the case of position, the child should do. You will be shocked at what this child did. This child that was advised by the father actually went to the lab, took some chemical, and put into the drinking water of the child that was always coming tops in class. Luckily, another student saw this child perform that act and reported. When the child was accosted, his response was, he had tried everything possible to beat this other student who was always coming tops in class. And so his father told him that he should do whatever it took to become best in class. And so the only thing that came to his mind was actually to poison the one who comes first. Now that tells you about the mindset of our learners and our students. when we label either positively or negatively, there are effects and there are consequences. And so rather than label, rather than praise one over the other, it is important to esteem the hard work, the conscientiousness, the integrity, the consistency of the one who comes stops, rather than actually propagating they are being smart or they are being intelligent. Thank you very much. I'll wait for your questions, if there are any. Thank you for listening.